Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Best Interest podcast, uh, which we are now bringing on a very regularly now. And today we continue with our discussion around the best interest of children, especially the girl child. And we are again debating, which is an issue of concern for everyone, is the the idea of decreasing the age of consent and the legal dilemma. So today we have a very distinguished panel. So we have Dr. Geetanjali Ghosh. She is a associate professor of law, and she also heads the department of law in Tezpur University, Assam. And she has done a PhD in post-graduation from the National Law School, Bangalore. And then we have Advocate Liyi Marli Noshi. She is a well-known child rights lawyer and activist based out of Delhi. She belongs to Arunachal, and she is known for her fiery work on the issues of children and the stands she takes at times on for the protection of children, especially on issues of POXO and child rights. She is also a Fulbright fellow, and so welcome to both of you. Welcome Gitanjali, welcome Lee.
Thank
So
you.
before we start, as a customary thing, I would like to just show a small 2 minutes animation video, which is based on our campaign. I'll just show that and then we'll move forward.
The law on child marriage was first introduced in the year 1929 and it will be 100 years soon. However, nothing seems to have changed. Because girls are betrayed by her own parents, community, religious leaders, and others. While the Constitution of India guarantees equal rights and protection of law to girls, state has failed to protect girls from being forced into slavery in the name of early child marriage. Mission 2029 is an effort to change the situation where every girl is protected and is able to live a life of dignity on her own terms, for which the state must recognize child marriage as a violation of human rights, implement Beti Bachao Beti Padhao in the true sense by protecting girls from forced early child marriages and by providing free, quality and compulsory education to girls till 18 years of age, implement laws and punish the violators. Every girl deserves a happy childhood, free from abuse, opportunities for education, free from illness, and most importantly, freedom to choose. You too can make a difference. Join the campaign against child marriage.
So while the debate and discussion is around age of consent, but we all know historically it has always been looked at uh, linked with the institution of marriage. In fact, the Age of Consent Act, which came in 1891, um, was related to a mishap which happened post marriage, and that caught the eyes of everyone. And then it was kind of one of the first law related to children during the colonial era. So, Gitanjali, if I can just ask you that how do you see how it evolved the protection to girls vis-a-vis sexual offenses within marriage, how it evolved, and from a gender justice perspective, when you see it, how do you see that evolution? Yeah.
All right, so if we talk about it conceptually, ideally, age of consent and age of marriage should have been treated separately because they are two very different things. But given the nature of our society, they tend to go hand in hand. And because sociologically speaking, they go hand in hand, whatever legal evolution has also happened pretty simultaneously. Now, as you rightly pointed out, we will have to go a little back in time and see where it all started. So, when we talk about the enactment of the IPC in 1860, as was originally drafted by Lord Macaulay, at that point in time, the age of consent stood at 10. As far as the age for the marital rape exception was concerned, that is the age of a wife when her husband can legally have intercourse with her, was also 10. But why the study on the changes in age of consent is important is because social reformers who are fighting this menace of child marriage, they continuously strived for increase in the age of consent, as that would naturally mean increase in the minimum age of marriage. Now, given the nature of our society, marriage is what legalizes sexual intercourse. And because sexual intercourse by unmarried people is not only looked down upon, but is even considered a taboo, perhaps. Now, the social reformers who were strongly advocating their cause with the then British government finally succeeded, and we found that the British government yielded by increasing the age of consent as well as the age of marriage. However, it was not all hunky dory, as you rightly pointed out. There was a very sad incident in 1890 when there was this child bride, Fulmoni Devi. She was just 11. And after marriage, her much older husband, I think he was around 35, he consummated the marriage, which led to severe bleeding, and the girl lost her life. This somehow shook the collective conscience, and the movement of the social reformers finally bore fruit as the age of consent bill that had been drafted by them was finally enacted in 1891. Now, that also led to amendment of the marital rape exception, and that was raised from 10 to 12. But because it was not a cognizable offense, it did not really lead to a lot of complaints. Now, a very disturbing trend became evident in the subsequent amendments to the IPC, as far as the age of consent was concerned, also as far as the marital rape exception age was concerned. Especially if you look at that on one side of the story and whatever was happening with the Child Marriage Restraint Act of 1929 on the other side. But long story cut short, ultimately it was only in 1978, years after India got its independence, that the minimum age of marriage was increased to 18 for girls. But please understand that the age of consent was still 16. And even worse, the marital rape exception age was 15. Now, it took a macabre gang rape that happens in Delhi in 2012. It was sort of that 1890 moment where the conscience of the nation was shook again. And then all of us know what happened with the Justice Verma Committee, how the Criminal Law Amendment Act happened. So finally, we found that the age of consent was raised to 18. But the age of marital rape exemption still stood at 15 until your organization, that is, happened to go to the court. And finally, in 2017, we had uniformity in age of consent, age of marriage for girl children, as well as the marital rape exemption. So, succinctly put, this is how the evolution of the age of consent has been. And then again, a mention has to be made at this juncture of the POXO Act, which has uniformly defined children as people below the ages of 18. So, any and every sexual offense with people below that age automatically attracts penal provisions. So, yes, that is succinctly put the evolution of both age of consent and age of marriage.
So very nicely uh, placed, Dr. Geetanjali. So what you said that while the age of consent and age of marriage should be separately seen and separately looked at, I'll come to that because uh, um, what are the ramifications of it in the society, and a society which is still um, uh, still broadly functioning with family as a unit, and that's the historical reality, something which the Indian cultural ethos can be proud of, because a lot of the Western societies and Western cultures uh, are now realizing the disintegration of this whole idea of family, and what it leads to many a times. So we'll come to that. I'll come to that. Let me go to Lee. So Lee, um,
Vikram,
Professor
yeah, tell me.
Professor placed her view on the how it evolved, the whole idea of gender justice evolved. So you are on the ground, you are on the ground on daily basis, engaging with
Mm,
cases of women who are fighting their lone battles,
mm.
many a times completely lonely, without even the family backup. So how do you see gender justice playing on the ground, Lee?
Hi, thank you, Bikram, for this invitation. So, I would like to say that when I was also reading about it, and when you daily do case, you don't go and read a history book, right? But of course, the struggle is 100 years old, 1891, and still we are struggling with that. What is the concern and how social society has to see us in a way that a child at the age of 8, 9, or 10, 12, whatever they're giving the number, has to have an idea of consent. If I see societally how in the ground, I still feel that in the way of gender justice, we have a lot more to achieve, because as a girl, not only a girl, even for a boy, to understand that, if something is affecting me, it's not about only consent of sex, it's about also generally about how you feed a child. When you feed a boy child or a girl child, if you see it, how you bring them up, we can see a lot of gender bias within the family. So yeah, the evolution is, though legally we're coming up with so many judgments. Of course, the 2012 rape has brought another level where law has says that no, nothing doing consent in 18. And so there we are still, as in, struggling as a society, because again, we women are divided into religion. We are divided into as a mother, sister, and we are divided into Hindu, Muslim. If you see that that whole point of having a law also, these are the impediment I think we have in the society, when culturally, if you say, religiously, how when it come to woman, all this come into play. So evolution may have, now we can see a lot of, but it's not number. In a small number we can see people are coming up and talking about it. But of course, acceptance is something that is a very difficult uh, thing to accept, that you can say that a child of 14 years understand what is happening with me within the, not, I'm not talking about here even sex, or I'm not talking about anything, I'm talking about the treatments you get. And as in gender female, how, what kind of treatment you get when you, even at 18-year-old, when you are asked to go come back home at 5 o'clock, and your brother at 15 still can be out. So there is also huge, I think, lacuna, we, or maybe societally we need to progress in this direction more of. And practically, when I see where I come from also, we talk about gender justice, polygamy is still so prevalent. So where is the justice? Because if a man, that's custom is there. Of course, it will long way to go. If after how many years of, more than 70 years, 5 years of independence, if I am, as a society, accepting another woman's, like a polygamy is acceptance in our society, it's a question to ourselves. Then how this, the equality is in the constitution is different for the other countries, or maybe other religions, or maybe other
So I think we lost Lee. I'll get back to her. But what she was raising was a very very important aspect. Somewhere
In my opinion,
I
that
also see your point, your issue also getting directed towards that. Uh, is the whole issue of the culture, the society which we live in, and what Lee was also pointing out that while there has been progress, but the issues of women get lost within this bifurcations of being caste, religion, culture, whatever, and the whole call for a uniformity or say uniform civil code or something where the woman or the girl can be seen as an individual rather than as part of some other community, and women can be seen as a block by themselves from a purely gender lens. I think that gets lost at time. So coming from that perspective of the cultural or the society we live in, and the prevalence of customary practice even today, which takes over a lot of decision making, including the fact that somebody was telling me that uh, once a girl decide on certain aspect, and if she's at a young age of say 16, 15, 16, 17, then many a times the chances of they being abandoned by the family, and we see it regularly happening that families proclaim that for us she is dead now, and that not only leaves her alone but also the vulnerability of that individual child. We should all call her a child who is below 18. Vulnerability of that individual child who is now cut off from her family ties, from her roots, basically, uh, is extremely, very, very scary. So, from that perspective, I'm coming again to Gitanjali, to you, that uh, when you see different legal jurisdictions across the world, uh, people have, I'm coming back to your point which you raised that time, that we must see age of consent and age of marriage differently. Uh, we all know that there are countries which see it differently. And uh, but how do you see that interplay with the cultural aspect of that particular geography, and how practical, how critical it is for in the context of India?
Right.
And I'm just adding to, I was just looking at some data where uh, it was in Times of India recently that almost 40% of child born in US are to unwed mothers. So when you see this from that context and keeping the Indian cultural dimension in mind, how do you see it? How do you see law should evolve? Yeah.
All right. So I will divide the answer into two parts. I'll first talk about the myriad ages that you find in vogue across the world, and then I will sort of connect it with the different legal systems that are prevalent even in this country. Now, it is of course not possible for me to, sort of talk about all the 193 countries in the world, but if you look at a typical range, it can go to as high as 21 and it can be as low as 12 in terms of age of consent. But apparently, the average age appears to be 16. But what we have to understand is that culture definitely plays a big role on how high or how low an age of consent will be. For example, there are countries where religious law predominates, where sexual activity outside marriage is absolutely prohibited. Right? So they therefore don't even talk about an age of consent. For them, it's age of marriage equals age of consent. Now, if I go region wise, if I look at Europe, I mean, some jurisdictions like Germany, Italy, Portugal range from somewhere between 14 and 16. UK is, I think, 16, and some others, of course, go upwards to 18. America, as we all know, the only country to have not signed the UN Child Rights Convention yet. So there again, they do not have one uniform age depending on which state you come from. It could vary from 16 to 18. Then again, in South America, we have some countries which go as high as 18, say, for example, Argentina. But then again, in the case of, say, Colombia, it's 14. Asia is huge, and so is the range of the age of consent. So apparently, in China it's 14. Japan has recently raised it to maybe 16, and in India we know finally when it became 18. So long story cut short, depending on the area that you come from and the cultural ethos of that place, that has a huge role to play. Or say for example, look at Africa. Many countries set it at as low as 13 to 14, and only few go up to 18. Now, if this is the situation internationally, nationally also, it's not like we have any uniformity. See, when we talk about these matters like marriage, divorce, etc., we have to understand that people are governed by their personal laws in this country, and tribes are governed by their very own customary laws. Law schools, when they teach personal laws, it's mostly Hindu law, Muslim law, let alone talk about Christian and Parsi law and tribal customary laws. Very, very few even touch upon it. Now, why am I talking about this is there are so many tribes in this country who are governed by their very own customary laws. And if you go to each of these customary laws, you will see different ages at which marriage is acceptable and different rituals. Or some could just start living together just like that, and the society would accept them as husband and wife. But when we talk about one personal law that has attracted a lot of attention, even from the judiciary in terms of age of marriage, has been Muslim personal law. Because in Muslim personal law, if you go by the Sharia, as soon as you hit the age of puberty, you can get married. And if we cannot figure out exactly at what age did you hit puberty, then it is supposed to be a standard 15. Now there are so many cases across high courts and in Supreme Court where we have two different kinds of judgments coming in. One is okay, age of puberty allows you to get married, so go ahead and get married. Doesn't matter that the PCMA says something else. And then you have judgments which say exactly the opposite. And now I believe against these two different kinds of judgments, there are appeals lying in Supreme Court. So honestly speaking, there is no one clear answer to the question posed by you. Because even within cultures, I think family to family also it might vary. So very difficult question to answer, because I wish the answer was just legal, but it is not. So I hope I have been able to, answer your question.
No, no, you're right that we cannot have a clear answer where things are divided both legally, culturally, historically. We have different positions about status of women and children in different cultures and religions also. So there's no clear-cut answers. I think the touchstone is the best interest. Uh,
Yes.
and I was just flashing this. So this was a recent newspaper report of Times of India.
All right.
I think the heading went off, but what this data shows, and it was mentioned very clearly that almost like 40% of all live births are babies are born to unmarried women.
Mm.
So this is the scenario of the West, especially the United States of America. And I think that's kind of an acceptable cultural practice out there. Um, there was another data which I was looking at that um, many of the people in US who are uh, um, homeless, almost like the chances of people who become homeless, the children who have been in the foster care or who have not been with the family, their natural family, the chances of them being homeless is quite high comparatively. So, so there are always these are all data which relate to what it will lead to.
And I think
So,
that data also has to be connected to, the abortion laws that are in vogue in different states of the US.
correct, correct,
Yeah.
correct. So, uh, abortion per se, like in Christianity, it's a sin, and
Yes.
so lot of states in the U.S. Don't take that route.
Yes,
Uh,
the pro-life and the pro-choice
yeah,
debate.
yeah. And recently, I think a couple of days back, the Supreme Court said that it's a woman's right to make a choice, even if she wants to have an abortion at a very later stage of pregnancy, she can. So that's a choice, but given the point that uh, uh, pregnancy. is one of the outcomes when you engage with sexual relationship. And when you engage as a minor, as a person who is not as the way it's looked at in, say, in a different context under section 15 JJ, that understanding the consequences. So as a minor you don't actually understand a lot of the consequences. So coming from there, so let me bring Lee now. Lee, uh, what Professor Ghosh is saying is that it's very hard to take a call. The legal standpoint is such, the differences in culture is such. There are cultures and religious basis for marrying a girl at very young age. I think recently Iran, if I'm not wrong, even
9.
allowed from 9 years old. So that goes with the cultural ethos of Iran. So um, how do you see Lee? Well, sliding down, say tomorrow, if we make it 16 and a girl reaches the code, say 15 and a half, saying, yeah, I was just about 16, I was about to be 16. So that basically that's the yardstick courts have started taking, that 17 plus, almost major. So let's allow. So tomorrow when it will be 16, it will be like 15 plus, just reaching the age of consent. So that is one aspect of it. Second aspect I would like to hear from you, Lee, is the how will you measure this? You know, uh, how pure this consent was,
So,
how free
Vikram,
that consent was. Yeah, yeah, Lee.
so if allow me, I'm just taking on to what Geetanjali, Professor Geetanjali says that there is no globally correct consent is, right? Is a trade-off. Either you increase or decrease. If you decrease, you can say that, you like lowering the age is like increasing the exploitation, and hiring the age is criminalizing the youth. Getting my point? So there is not, basically we can say, but your question coming to that, how do we see today? Now just see, even when you're talking about, I was just jotting the homeless in America recently, I was there. So, and other thing involving how the youth, how this whole country see, we are taking so much of human right procedure, rule of law, what not from there. But I just feel that even if we see recent incident of what happening in Epstein, most of the victims are homeless victims who had a broken family. Why do you then add, coming to India, if you even see the data, how many of us, as a very educated family or coming from a well-to-do family, uh, are coming and reporting any abuses? That is also an important fact. We need to see this. Only people coming from certain class and caste is coming and reporting it. So therefore my this thing, what I say is that we need to see this, that a person who is consenting in a certain age, does she or he has this understanding that what is the consequence of that. If he or she does not have this understanding, then
I think she's encountering network issues. So Gitanji, taking it forward,
the
that
particular act. So if you say, if tomorrow somebody is coming up to Supreme Court and say, I want to marry this boy at 17 because I'm in love, even if you see this Romeo Juliet, whatever people are talking about all over court, also I agree there might be two adolescents who are in love and had that. I think for that we have to give this discretionary to judiciary to sit and understand what is the intent of that whole fact. As somebody, an innocent love story, doing that act, or somebody. Now if I ask me, as a person who see every day at the court, even consent, even child, like trafficking children. I know this, I have this case from 24 Paragana, from West Bengal, where the trafficker was a 17-year-old boy who fall in love with 15-year-old girl who was going to tuition. Yeah, what he did, He spotted him. He did everything to bring him to the railway station, and somebody took him from the railway station. Now, what would you do in that case? Because you know that
So I think she'll come back once the network resumes. So, so Gitanjali, just taking it
well,
forward.
I have done mistake, right? Possible. There is a huge possible this trafficker will not to go to the jail. He will say. Now again, of course, Vikram and I was discussing the Dehradun case. Now I have another case like that. Like every day we come, a 13-year-old girl who pregnant, gave birth at the age of 13, get pregnant at age of 12, and she said, I have consented. She said it official. Now I know it's irrelevant, but it's a matter of now we see that she doesn't understand. She never I asked her, did you knew when you are having sex that you are going to have a child and use protection? No, of course. Then we come to this that point that okay, education, this and that, awareness is school, sex education is school, protective education, sex, everything is fine. But there is a group and class of people who would like their child to go marry early also, right? Is it not that when you get married to a 17-year-old girl to a 21-year boy, how much understanding do they have? Some of them get into this only because there are children who want to get into, they are getting into this situation because they want to out of the abuse of the house. If you see any kind, most of these child sexual abuse cases will have connection to domestic violence. It is not just that if I am not happy at home, I'm looking for happiness. And I know children who have consented for Maggie, plate of Maggie. This child feed me, men feed me every day, give me every day the 10 rupiah ka Maggie, and I go and sleep with it. And those, and now I don't want to take name. Government officials do that. I know a boy child who consented to have this in age of 12.
So I think it's very erratic, the network at her end. So, Gitanjali, let me take forward.
So if a girl from lower income and say I want to get married to this boy, because that's how he has seen, because she has seen sex as a form of marriage. That's how we have taught. We condition mind. You go and train police, they will say it is acceptable in our society. So when we're in country like India, you know, to have different law because of the religion and culture, custom we have, it's very dangerous in many way for me, because I see child marriage in travel very frequent, very easy these days, child abuse, only because we have a custom is protecting that man. Otherwise, it's a POXO. I have heard even Guwahati High Court in Arunachal from one case in Arunachal has quashed a POXO case where, there are some good people, you can say good position people in the government who have, and because they went to customary law, they given the fine, so they are the POXO is quashed. Now in this case, even if I'm saying he that 40% what you mentioned in US, all the childbirth are from adolescent, or maybe then if we have a data like in India where every childbirth is recorded, I think we will have higher, more higher, because in a places where it's not reporting, the child are still, we're still giving birth at home. So adolescent marriages, now what will, as in I don't know how are we not trusting our judicial mind when it's come to a concern of age that a child of particular class, of economic class, or particular caste will have that intent to have a child at certain age. It's promise of marriage is a different thing. But if I say a 17-year-old who have never been to school, who have not known other than doing homework, can household work or go out of this place. Oh, I'm not talking about Delhi. I'm talking even in Delhi we have, but I'm just taking keeping Delhi in a better space. So coming from wherever UP somewhere, do you think he will understand that other than understanding sex, she will not understand anything more than that? I don't think so.
So thank you so much, Lee. So I'm just coming to the last slot of the discussion today. So there are three things I would like to put before you all, and then it's an open for both of you to respond to that. So one is this whole idea of giving judicial discretion. So um, we all know how, like, we have this new introduction in the Juvenile Justice Act where children can be treated as adults if they have um, done some heinous crime, and they fall in this age bracket of 16 to 18. Now, I was just last week, I was there in one of the judicial academy for training of principals, magistrates, and all. And the capacity of people, the availability of psychologists, psychiatrists, social workers, it's so it's almost not present. Even in places like Delhi, we know how difficult it is to move processes. So while that judicial discretion can be a way out, and this is what came out in the Law Commission Report 283 also, where I also had the opportunity of speaking on my mind. But how safe that is, how foolproof that will be. So that's question one. Second, I think the biggest threat when it comes to child marriage uh, is the issue of of parents themselves. Now we all know most of the child marriages which happen in the country are pushed by parents. So how you protect girls from parents? Now I have copies of notarized agreements between parents in Assam where two sides meet, get a paper done with help of some lawyer, get it notarized, where they are saying that my child is in deep love. These kind of statements they use as part of the legal document. They're in deep love, so we decide to marry them once they reach the age of marriage. But in fact, they that very next day they are sent back to the other family. So the moment you slide down the age of consent, making it legal in a sense. And we all know the PCMA, the Child Marriage Act, is not that strong. Uh, while doing marriage is illegal, but once it's done, it's kind of a legal status. So, how do you save children, especially the girl child, from the parents themselves? So, I think it's a fight not vis-a-vis, and as you said, Gitanjali, in the start, that we must see it differently. But my question is how different they are. Once that law will be mostly used to marry off girls against their wishes, and most of the girls are wanting to study. Most of the girls are wanting to have a brighter future. Um, it's a very minuscule number who are wanting to marry and have a early marriage in life of their own choice. Most of the girls are looking for education, better life, standing on their own feet, have big dreams. But larger chunk of that girls are forced into marriage by their own family. So the moment you reduce the age of consent, it some way allows or kind of gives a legal validity to whatever cultural and religious norms are. And this is where the harmful practices, the idea of harmful practices, which is part of the UNCRC, UNICEF keeps bringing out reports on that. So all these fall under that bracket. So I'm just asking both of you as the last question from my side. What dangers you see if we reduce age of consent? What dangers you see for girl children, especially those who aspire better life for themselves beyond marriage?
Honestly speaking, it's kind of a catch-22 situation. And here I'm talking about both the age of consent and the age of marriage. Personally, all the discussion that is happening around the lowering of the age of consent, especially if it is an adolescent couple, this is something that had been talked about even before POXO was enacted. So, if you look at the original bill that was produced in the parliament, there they had kept this exception clause. But when POXO was sent to the parliamentary standing committee, they said nothing doing, 18 is 18. So, let's just remove this exception. Why has discussion about this exception come up again? Because across states, across high courts, we are seeing cases like this where it is an adolescent couple involved, and because of the stringent application of POXO, you find the girl going to the children's home and you see the boy going to prison. So, of course, that is one side of the story, and it definitely has to be taken care of. Now, whether judges do it on a case by case basis when the case comes to their court, or the parliament chooses to bring in a statutory exception, that is something that we will have to wait and see. But to directly answer your question, in the very beginning, I talked to all of you about how the age of marriage has evolved in this country, about how the age of consent has evolved in this country. But neither has criminalization stopped anything, nor has law alone been able to stop wrongdoing, right? So in terms of danger for girls, and here I'm not talking about girls who are in love with a partner and would very much like to get married and they have a different perception of a good life. I'm talking about girls who would like to be educated, who would like to have a career, and then maybe if they feel like want to have marriage and kids. I feel the danger is huge. When you raise the age from 16 to 18, you are basically making sure that from class 10th, now she has an option to go up to class 12. When you raise the age from 16 to 18, we're just making sure that her body is getting a little more stronger to deal with something as difficult as, say, a pregnancy. So there are dangers myriad, but again, even this 18, this age of 18 that was laid down even under the CRC, there is so much debate going on as to why was it 18, why could it not be 19, and why could it not be 17. So I definitely believe that the age criteria alone is not going to protect our girls. 18 years one day and I get married. How how better is it than getting married at 17 years and 364 days? So this attitudinal change has to happen, where settling daughters does not mean marrying them off. Giving them an education and career should be good enough. I have a PhD, and yet I got questions like, okay, now you're educated, you have a job, so when are you getting married? Once you got married, when are you having a kid? Once you had a first kid, when are you having the second kid? So the societal expectation just never ends. So this change in attitude has to come, and it will not happen overnight. It has to happen in generations. Even in my own family, you will see a very different thing happening with my parents versus, say, my parents' brothers and sisters. So it's a very nuanced thing, to each his own. But I definitely feel the law has a role to play. But I don't know if increasing or decreasing the age would, translate into any real benefits for girls until and unless their caregivers are on board with them. So yes, very succinctly, those are my.
No, thank you so much. And little experience of, because we also work in Assam now, the deterrent effect of law has started impacting in Assam.
Yes.
When I move and I discuss with people on the ground, be it an auto rickshaw wala or any other, the message has gone loud and clear to people that if you marry a minor with a minor, the repercussions are very heavy. And not that it has completely stopped. There are new methods people have evolved, migrating out of the state, getting married in different locations of the country. I know that those facts, but within the state, I think the message is very loud and clear, and it has reflected in data also. The health indicators have improved, and the number of child marriages have decreased.
Yes.
So it is impacting. So I think the deterrence of law needs to be used at least for protecting the most vulnerable, and especially the girl child, which I think nobody can deny are the most vulnerable category in the society,
Yes.
especially when the parents are also adamant to,
Yes.
go against their best interest.
And
So thank
this
you.
notary, I'll just quickly slip in a
Please, please,
point. This
take it.
notary
Take it.
thing needs to be tackled. I mean, when my father was alive, he was a special public prosecutor in the POXO court, and he once told me of this case where it was a POXO case, and then one fine day both parties came to him and said that they had gotten a notarized agreement that when the girl will turn 18, this boy will marry the girl, and on the basis of that, they had decided to arrive at a compromise, and now my father should, put an end to the POXO case. And then my father very painstakingly had to explain to them that marriage or no marriage, POXO is a different thing altogether. So it's a very real thing, particularly in the rural areas of Assam. They think that once you get something notarized, you can do anything and everything under the sun. And that is, of course, because of the lack of awareness of the law. So that is something that I feel needs to be
No, that's
taken up.
happening, Geetanjali, if I may say, doctor.
Yeah, yeah. Please, 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 Lee. I think so. But the point is not that. The point is there are people who are waiting to exploit the provisions. Then
Yes.
the moment you
The
loosen
rape
the grip,
was were proved because
we
the
lost you. You have to start again. We lost you.
okay. So now you are talking about a minor. I know even this marriage thing happening in the major, like in Delhi, it's happening.
Yes.
Let's not go outside of 50 kilometer away from Delhi. Within the
Hmm.
Delhi, we have this a girl who was in a relationship and she agreed, but only that the relationship supposed to be an marriage.
Hmm.
Then when she was there was abortion, things happening, and FIR was filed. They have filed an affidavit in High Court, Delhi High Court, and they married off. But after marriage, what happened? Same thing. Now they are fighting divorce. So that's what I'm coming anyway. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not only happening in rural; it's happening in urban in a very different way. What's happening now? We are talking about. I'm talking about adult. Then, if adult can be
Hmm.
taken for right like this, just think of this minor child who is so happy getting an iPhone from you, who is so happy getting one nice dress from you, who is so happy going with you in. I have this girl 13-year-old who go to club in Sheraton and all this in Delhi. It's a fake name, fake iCard, and she said she was 13-year-old girl allowing to be a promoter in these hotel clubs. Can you believe that? If this child just for 200 entering, getting two couple getting inside the club, she get 500 rupees. So if she has given 5,000 rupees a night, will not she get into any kind of relationship for that age I'm talking? So this is no huge. Will reducing the age will help somebody to get scot free? Then I bring into this logic of Blackstone ratio.
Hmm.
100 guilty may go free, one should not be punished.
Hmm.
Then why can't we apply this to the children for POXO, for any kind of one? Might be 100 girls are lying, but there might be one girl who is saying the truth. Why can't we keep the law for them? Now this is my question, because not all see. Mostly in this case, that's why in my 17 18 years of experience working with children, especially in court, I have realized that children doesn't love it. Is of course lack of education is there, parental guidance is there are so many other social issues also involved. But and when we get to the court, what kind of lawyer we are, it is very important. Public prosecutors is burden for them. It's a just witness. But people like us who call our child right activists, are we doing enough to provide that kind of guidance to it? I'm not saying go ask them to lie,
to say the truth in a affirmative and acknowledging when you, that's also very important in law. Why do any conviction turn to acquittal high court? Because your evidence is such as the child is or a victim or any is just taken as a witness. They are not, till now POXO may have asked to engage us all these things, but when the age is low, most of this, we, because of the lengthy process also, we seen this as a, burden on ourselves. This is a burden, long process of law, our judiciary like that. So this is also one way. That's why most of the trafficking case, you see the NCBR data, there are a lot of trafficking case FIR, but what is the conviction? Because when you leave this state and go, who will come and give the evidence? So I think lowering the age will no way will help anything. But of course, when it come to that adolescent, relationship, we should give this discretion to the judges who इतना पढ़ लिख के आया है, तो कुछ तो उधर काम लगा है ना, इंटेंट को देख के द फैक्ट्स स्पीक फॉर हिमसेल्फ कि it was it an intended love story or it was an exploitative love. Because even a country where we are saying the consent is less, they also have this age gap,
Yes.
close gap age. They also see that. I think those cases going to Supreme Court for this, they are not coming into the lower court and seeing that how many children who are exploitative are not able to, are not going unpunished because they don't have a good lawyer who can bring them to Supreme Court, right? We also see how many percentage of cases is going to High Court and Supreme Court, and how many of are in the trial court
Right.
where they are not, why, how many of us questioning that? No, but this is easy, right? Because it's again gender coming into play. And one
Yes.
gender is victimized, another gender is accused of. So again gender coming into play where we don't discuss such thing, exploit, you can say abuse of law in many laws. When it come to gender, we really uh, discuss this. So therefore, understanding that, age of consent, age of marriage is two different things. I don't think so. I am 44. I have reached the age of marriage. I am not married. I'm telling you. I have not think I am married. I am not reached the age of marriage.
So I hope we get her back online. So Gitanjali, thank you so much. I think it's a debate which will remain open, and we'll always have views
Of,
which which we can conclude to. Lee, we
Yes.
again lost you for last 20 seconds or something.
yeah, I know that this has been going on for a while.
So thank you so much. I had requested for a 30-minute
No, it was a
slot,
pleasure. It was a pleasure.
but it went so interestingly that we are almost nearing an hour. And
Hello.
Lee, I'm saying we lost you, but I'm saying we I requested for a 30-minute slot, and the discussion went so well that we are
I
almost
think we
nearing an
lost
hour.
Vikram now.
So, so thank you so much, Professor and Dr. Geetanjali Ghosh from Tezpur University, and Lee, Advocate, Delhi High Court. Uh, so, any last comments before we close the session? Any last comment? Any last message for the viewers?
I
The
can
Lee,
only
only
message,
okay.
please, ma'am, please go ahead.
No, I can
she has
only
a
say
network
that.
issue. That's why I'm asking her to do.
So if I can only say that, if we cannot unite for the children over being abused, then we are no more. There is no hope for the humanity. Like if we as an adult come unite for the crime committing to any children, then I think the hope is very less as a human now. Anyway, coming this era of AI and technology have make us more of us individualistic, where emotions are being, just seen as uh, aversion, no more as a need. Empathy and sympathy we are losing. So we judge people so quick. So if we are reaching to that, I think we are slowly, especially for children, I'm saying children, we are losing the hope for the humanity, because every child for me deserve, whoever has brought that child, with the, as a society, deserve that very very you say fearless, protected. I'm not saying protected in the sense of, but a protection from the abuses, you know, and safe, and a humanly human childhood. Yeah.
Yes, so my closing remark will be thoroughly centered around the age of consent debate, because nowadays, when you talk to anybody and everybody, they have their two cents on it. But I believe that an uninformed opinion can be a very dangerous thing. So my parting message would be that before forming an opinion on whether the age of consent should be lowered or not, I feel people first need to really go into the depth of the issue and try and understand it, and not just make their opinion on the basis of a media report or maybe a TV show, or what they have seen on Instagram or social media. So I feel you first need to understand what the entire matter is all about, and then perhaps that opinion would lead to a conclusion that would be, as we say, in the best interest of all children.
So thank you so much to both of you, and I think the last message what Gitanjali said, that we must build an opinion to understand what the whole idea of best interest is, and why law evolved over the last 100 years, and why there's a need to protect the girl, even from the family at times, and that's why the state needs to come in as a protective layer. I keep putting this as a standard paragraph in most of our PILs which we file, that right of parents is not absolute. So, but how you bring that, how state can come in, this whole idea of behavior change, communication, and spreading awareness and making people aware about the vulnerability of girl child when married early, that those have been going for decades, but we still have one fourth of girls being married as a child. We still remain the biggest contributor to the global data in terms of absolute numbers. So, in such situation, and we all know the right to education ends at age 14, and post that there's no guarantee. And so, how we can engage girl children in more productive and constructive things. One of the demand which we always say is that kindly raise the age of right to education till 18 years, making it more engaging for the girl child. So, with that note, I'm also sending a message to everyone. This is an ongoing series on age of consent and other issues of children in their best interest. So, please feel free to contact us to be part of this webinar. We will see your credentials and allow to debate or discuss with someone who is also very passionate and informed about the issue. So thank you so much. We almost completed an hour. So thank you so much, Gitanjali, and thank you so much, Lee. Uh, Namaskar.